बेटा दरवाजा बंद कर दो ये. हाँ सर, we can start now.
Yeah, okay. So let me just explain what we are trying to do. There's this whole prediction of an 8.5 magnitude and above earthquake in the Himalayan region. It could be now, it could be 100 to 100 years later, but there is an earthquake that is predicted. So as a geologist, I would like to ask you, first of all, do you believe in this premise that there will be or there is bound to be an 8.5 earthquake in the Himalayan region?
Definitely, yes, we do believe in that. It's a simple notion that this whole concept is based on one simple principle that when India plate collided with China, well, or the Tibetan plate, China was not there at that time, so we call it the Tibetan plate and or the Eurasian plate. The thing was, it collided along a boundary, which is today known as in the Sangpo Sucha zone. And then the movement of Indian plate has been happening northwards since then. That was around, the dates are debatable. Some people believe it to be around 5.55 million years. Now, recent researches have shown that it is around less than 10 million years. So, the forces of the plates moving, Indian plates moving northwards and creating some sort of pressure has already been there. And there are definite, you can say, boundaries or lines or lineaments along which these earthquakes will happen in near future. And these all have been marked very prominently. And now, since the last earthquake, the major earthquake we had was in around 1905, 1904, 1905. That was in Kangra. Yes, and then we had subsequent earthquakes, but earlier also the earthquakes may have happened here. They were not. They are not. Might not have been recorded of the magnitude which you are talking about. Uh, for the simple reason, the data which is available is only for about 100 or maybe slightly more years. Secondly, these mountain regions earlier were not habited as or populated or densely populated as they are now, because we have seen the growth of these population in the cities, towns, villages, and they have grown exponentially very high. And some of them are located on the boundaries, the boundaries, or you can say the earthquake boundaries, which have been which are very prominent, and we know that if something happens, the energy is going to be released either in main boundary fault, main central thrust, main frontal fault, or in the Sangpo-Sucha zone. Earlier, we didn't have much habitations on along these lineaments, but now, with population explosion and economic compulsions, so geological knowledge has been taken for a ride. Nobody is interested in that, and we are just waiting for a major earthquake. We know that we are sitting on the earthquake boundaries. We know we are setting up townships on the earthquake boundaries, but still we are taking it very lightly. So the main reason is, yes, we are expecting that type of magnitude because energy has to be released. And when I talk about energy has to be released, so when India plate moves northward, it also moves in clockwise and anti-clockwise directions. It is not moving like it is not moving like northward. It is moving in anti-clockwise and clockwise direction. So when it moves in anti-clockwise in directions, so we have Muzaffarabad earthquake we had in Afghanistan or Pakistan occupied Kashmir. We have a lot of earthquakes. Then we have in Assam. But now what our concern is, we are expecting a major earthquake in the central part of So Delhi Ridge and extending right up to, you can say, uh, Leh town and maybe Shimla, Parvanu, this whole axis, So our main concern is when the whole accumulation of these energies concentrate and we have this earthquake in this region, then it is going to be um, a very difficult situation for the people living in this region, because the buildings, they are not up to mark. Geological knowledge in the construction is being compromised. Engineering standards are compromised due to economic. Hills slopes are just taken for a ride. So this entire region, even if we have a slightly smaller earthquake than that, than it is, but it will be a troublesome for the whole region and the community living there in India, or maybe in Tibetan region. So this earthquake we are expecting in the central part of the Indus Sanko-Sucha zone, and maybe extending right up to Mansarovar and beyond.
So you are a believer in the fact that it could happen.
No, I'm not a believer. This is mathematics of God. Geology is nothing but mathematics of God. It is like we have this. If you see me, I have some identities. Two eyes. Humans have two nose, mouth, and every feature is very well defined. So we have arms, we have legs, we have all the things which we use it for specific purpose. Similarly, Earth has very prominent structures. So it also sees from some things. It also releases its energy from some things. The points are very well defined. Because we don't want to understand the rocks, we don't want to understand Mother Earth, so we take it for a ride, and we take it, no नहीं, ये तो natural हो गया, ये तो होना था भैया, ये तो प्रकृति हो गया, and this is beyond our control. But it is not like that. If doctors can understand a human being, anatomy, physiology, and can give recommendations so that humans can be saved, human lives can be saved, or animal lives can be saved. Similarly, if good doctors of Earth, who are geologists, do their duty well, identify the proper lineaments properly, we don't have a then I think we can actually predict these earthquakes also. But it is a simple science, but yes, we can do it if proper monitoring stations are made along all these things. But unfortunately, none of the governments in the Himalayan region till date are serious about that. Neither Geological Survey of India, neither other research institutes, they have set up any scientific laboratories across the Himalayas regions which could actually help in predicting this. We had this Kohima earthquake, the Bhuj one. So we had that Kohima laboratories, earthquake monitoring stations there. A lot of activities done, but that is just one part, and they're just observing it. I don't know, but they have failed to expand the same situation, same state of affairs in across the Himalayas. If we could actually do that, we would be in a better position to predict that. And yes, that is a lot of uh, inputs required. We need to set up at least 7 stations across the Himalayas, north to south, and then 7 along east to west, maybe 21 stations across the Himalayas, and we will have a very good data about the predictions we can make in actually when the how the movements are taking place, and how we can predict future earthquakes, and possibility of this earthquake maybe in near future, or as the things are moving, because last year and this year we had lot of tremors, maybe 14 tremors in Delhi, then 7 to 8 in Chamba, then again in Himachal and Uttaranchal we had a lot of subsequent tremors. So it was like I was in Leh, I was in Galwan Valley. I was called by the army to explore groundwater resources, and then for the army in Ladakh in last year. So I was there for 4 months, and then we could feel a lot of earthquakes there, tremors along the Indus-Ucha zone. And I think if anything, if there is a place on earth where we have the most significant activity of earthquakes in the past, that was that in the Sangpo-Sucha zone. That is the place where we expect now also, but still we could see the vibrations, and the length of those vibrations were very prolonged. Earlier it was like an earthquake, but now we have prolonged vibrations. So data interpretations, we need more data, we need more simulations, we need more field laboratories on the ground on these basic boundaries, where we can actually get the data and see how the plates are moving.
So your relationship with the Himalayas has been a very long one. So
Yeah,
can you
because yes,
journey out, right since your graduation and finding of fossils and how you supported the history theory and the history of Himalayas basically through your whatever you have found the fossils etc. You just explain to us the history of Himalayas.
yeah, because I was born in Himalayas. I was born in Shimla, brought up in Malabar. I had my primary education in Kasauli, and then I was studied in Punjab University, Chandigarh. Did my doctorate from again the Lesser Himalayan region, where I collected a lot of fossils because I was living in Kasauli. So after 1864, I had when we were reading, Kasauli was considered to be unfossiliferous. Kasauli means the frame of about 18 million years to about 23 million years was considered to be non-fossiliferous. But after I did my research, we had the largest collection of fossils of angiosperms, mammals, bivalves, flowers, anything you name it, and we had that first reports. All were first reports from there. So that helped me to reconstruct the paleo environment of this place. Paleo environment means basically, if we are finding some fossils, we try to reconstruct the environment at how these fossils were actually growing. So interestingly, I found about 6 to 7 species of plants which are not at all today present in Himalayas: Garcinia, Gluta, Combretum, Syzygium, Phlanthus, and there were some species. These are not found in Himalayas today and are confined to Andaman Nicobar, Malaysia, or Indonesia region. So at that time, I was too young to actually, because I was able to find, we could identify with the help of a scientist from Birbal Sahni Institute of Paleobotany. But then making such a bold statement of that these are not part of the Himalayas, and then Kasauli or these regions, the entire Himalayan region was not in the present position which it is at today, we are seeing, but it was near the equator, was a very big statement at that time, if I could make. But now after then I had experience of working in Ladakh for Indian Army. I was there in Kargil war and providing groundwater for the army there, and then we were doing exploration in Siachen, and then now this time in Galwan I was in Daulat Beg Uldi area, Galwan area, the entire sector I studied, and then there also we found a lot of fossils. So that helped us to build the entire story and confirm our inferences which we had drawn in 1990, 1990 80, 89 and 90. So that was a time where we draw this. Now, after so many years and doing extensive research across the Himalayas, we are now in a very comfortable positions to actually predict the paleo-environmental reconstruction, the paleo-latitudinal positions of India about 20 million years. So 20 million years, we are now very much 18 million years. We are very confident that Himalayas were near the equator. The entire Himalayan sequence, which was part of the Tethys Sea, was near the equator. Himalayas are nothing but now I have a recent abstract which I published in a conference that Himalayas are nothing but a graveyard, a geological graveyard where we have different geological formations. We see it as an Himalayan mountain ranges, but actually it is a graveyard, and graveyard of Tethys Sea. The entire Tethys Sea, which was there, has been uplifted, and then we are seeing Himalayas, what we are seeing today. So once we are able to see this in totality, and identify the fossils which we are getting from the Kasoli, same fossils we are getting in Ladakh, and then the whole story makes up, and then for you maybe earthquakes are like 8.5 means a lot of tremors or a devastating earthquake, but for me it's like an earth dancing, showing its life activity. Like if I'm very happy, I dance more. If I'm more happy, I dance even more. So it is the intensity of my dancing or my happiness, so that is how the earth shows its happiness, but unfortunately we are not working in tune with the various geological formations, and as a result of which we may suffer huge losses at that time when it happens. But if we are geologically wise and sound enough, then we may enjoy the dance of the earth uh, when it is dancing, so that is how I see it. But that is how the abbreviations today are made, that all the natural processes, even global warming, is considered to be very bad, but I consider it the best part to be on this planet earth. No global warming means no man, no evolution, and I think it is the best part to be on this planet earth. But see the way it is being portrayed, because we don't want to live happily with global warming, we don't want to understand it. So there are misconceptions about earthquakes also. Whenever things happen, something good happens, something bad happens. But if we know the intensities, yes, it is going to happen like this, and if we take proper precautions, we may save lives and enjoy it. Yes.
Yeah, so through your work where you've been drilling for water and helping a lot of people, the army and region and settlements across the Himalayas. So now there is a lot of damming that is happening of the river, the Thail Dam, now lots of proposed dams as well. Now recently you had the glacier burst and the Rishiganga Dam breaking. So what have you found through your journey when you say groundwater and the rivers, the coast the rivers take? How is that changing, and what is human activity reducing water level, or are we disturbing the ecology of the Himalayas to such an extent that we are nearing a sort of catastrophic situation?
So James, it's not like we are disturbing or we are enhancing something. What is essential is we have to see in another perspective. Like I'll just give you an example. Like we are also constructing dams, but China is also constructing dams, and the three gorgeous dams. I don't know whether you have heard about it or not, but that's the biggest dams in the world. Dams of dams, you can call it. So that is the magnitude of dams they are building on the other side of Himalayas, their side, which in case if they happens, they are basically not good for humanity. If anything happens at that time, entire. So things are happening because we are investing a lot of our money on energy. In the name of energy sector. Like earlier, it was like in nuclear power also you were doing that. In hydel power also we are doing it, and hydel power projects, yes, they are instant source of energy. Now very cheap source of energy also. You make once you have invested, and then you reap the harvest, because we consider that hydel power projects are renewable projects, but I have a question mark here also. Are they renewable actually? No, they are not renewable, because the source water is not renewable. The glaciers are melting at a very fast pace, or almost in Himalayas, glaciers are almost on the verge of extinction now. They are not extinct, but some of them are extinct. We have documented that in our papers, and others are on the verge of extinction. So once those glaciers are gone, these hydropower projects themselves goes for a six. Now, coming to the lifespan of these dams, the lifetime of dam is the lifetime of cement or steel, which is considered to be about 50 to 70 years. So after every 50 to 70 years, the these are time bombs, then hydrogen bombs, hydro water bombs, Anytime these dams get damaged and we have a very, very mishappening situation. So we have to take into consideration, like now we have this the Bhakra Nangal Dam, which is considered to be very crown in hydropower projects, but that is also like more than 50 years old now. So we have to understand that 50 years old dam can be what are the significance of this and what are the disadvantages of this now. So even if we are growing old, we are harvesting energy, but the dams are going old. There are silting problems. There are so many other problems associated with it. So we have to take that into consideration. Then we have this silting problem, more flooding problems, more flash floods coming in. Like we had this Chamoli, then Kedarnath, then in Leh, 2010, we had a devastating flood at that time also, killing almost 200, more than 200 people in a flash, in a fraction of a second. And I happened to be there on that night of 5th August. I remember we were there, and then we did extensive studies on that, how these flash floods happen. So we were able to relate it to, yes, there was some cloudburst, but beyond that cloudburst, there was we coined a theory that was like reservoir wall rupture mechanism. So if reservoir is not formed, we will not have any devastation. Similar thing which we had in Chamoli and Kedarnath, they were all reservoirs which ruptured, Until unless that reservoir is formed, instantaneously reservoir is formed or ruptured, then we will not have this type of devastations. That is what we concluded. Even if we have a lot of cloud bursts, only those portions will be affected where reservoir is there. Where a reservoir is not there, even if we have double the cloud burst which we have in Leh, it will not be affecting the flooding scenario. So it has to be understood in those sense, If we can do more extensive traversing of these areas, the Himalayan regions, and then we can see where instant reservoirs there is landslides, or how the reservoir is going to accumulate and form, then we can reduce the possibilities of these flash floods in near future. This, if proper monitoring is done, yes, we can prolong these natural calamities. But there are not actually natural calamities. It is like a cycle of erosion and weathering, erosion and transportation. Basically, the simple principles of which we have studied in geography, maybe in primary school. स्विफ्ट सिक्स की माउंटेन्स में रेन पड़ती है, स्नो पड़ती है, वहाँ से वो सेडिमेंट्स के साथ निकलती है और फिर वो जाती है, वो रिवर्स में जाती है, रिवर से वो ओशंस में, बीचेस में पहुँचती हैं, फिर वो ओशंस में पहुँच जाती हैं. तो दिस प्रोसेस continuously happens, we don't have to worry much about it, but we have to see that we don't come as an obstacle in this natural cycle which is happening, and due to global warming this is bound to increase in near future. So we have to be very clear in all these aspects. More we are clear about this, more strict laws we pass that these are the boundaries, we don't have to make our habitations here, more happily we live with these natural phenomena, and we can just enjoy like we see the videos of the Chamoli flash flooding. We can see, oh wow, itna zyada pani aa gaya. So if we stay away from those boundaries, we can make those boundaries. Yes, it is possible to make those boundaries, because we can calculate how much sediments are going to come, and if we understand the paleo flooding events like which we have submitted in a report in Leh floods, we could actually document 500-old floods, 500-old and maybe 1,000-year-old floods which happened in the past. So it is possible. Then in Leh, we were able to document a paleoseismic activity which happened in the Leh town. So we were able to find paleoseismic structures there, very prominent structures. And so there was a lake in Spituk. If you have, I don't know whether you have been to that, but that is the area at Leh Airport basically. When you land, yeah. So that is it. So we were able to document. So paleoseismicity is also possible to study if you really want to study, and then paleoseismic study is possible, and then we can predict also. But for predictions, we need to have some observation wells all across the Himalayas, and we need to have a proper documentary evidence, and then if we can just get this data, see the chemical changes, see the isotopic changes, and the physical changes in those, we can actually predict. We can actually predict. So Spitok was like a very interesting event. So what was happening was, in when Khardungla Glacier, we were able to document that Khardungla Glacier, which is now almost confined to the peaks of Khardungla range, at the top of the Khardungla mountain road, which is considered to be the highest motorable road in the world. So that was, today we are seeing, but actually around 11,000, maybe 17 years or 18 years ago, this was extending right up to Indus River or the Spitok area. And gradually, due to global warming, it has receded in the past. So it has documented around, I don't remember the exactly, but I think around 29.4 kilometers it has receded in the past. In the last 11,000 years or more, maybe 12,000 years, it has receded about. So when it was receding, these were it was receding in Gompa and maybe in that area, and then subsequently there was some lakes formed in Spituk catchment, and then that lake continued to develop. So that is why we are seeing that mud section there, in Spituk, a very clear, prominent, and the local Ladakhis use it for making their gompas since time immemorial. The muds and mud bricks, still they use it for constructing their houses. Very efficient insulating material, and they are using it for constructing. So the entire process of then this lake was formed, and then around 1,000 years ago, due to there was another cyclic event of global warming peak. We call it, I have developed this cycle of Arya's sea cycle of global warming and cooling, and after every this cyclicity is based on the observations which we were able to find while drilling, and also these were substantiated by some cross sections of in Ladakh batholith, which were resembling alphabet C, which we interpreted it to be the Indus glacier in the past, and then Indus river flowing, and then again river Indus freezing, and this is that cycle. We were able to document 10 such cycles since the last ice age. So
I didn't understand that part.
yeah, I'll just tell you again. So around in 2007, we just heard, I was drilling for Indian Army in Ladakh, and then we were drilling some bores on Indus River. At that time, then UNIPCC made a statement, bold statement in Times of India, Indian Express, that man-made global warming. I think that was the time when we first time heard man-made global warming, or it was more popularized at that time. So as a geologist, it was not easy for us to digest, how can man be responsible for global warming and cooling, So we started to reinvestigate the entire concept of global warming and cooling from geological aspect, because geologists will always, they believed that we'll talk in millions of years. But when we started studying these evidences, we found that we got actually a section in the Ladakh batholith which resembled alphabet C, like this is alphabet C, then again alphabet C, and again alphabet C, and again alphabet C. So what is alphabet C? So this was alphabet C was this, suppose this was a complete rock. If you go towards Chumathang in Ladakh or Somorari Lake, you find a lot of cliffs, huge cliffs of bathalates, on two sides, and Indus River is just flowing. On those cliffs, one of those cliffs, we around 40 meters above that, we were able to find these structures. So we interpreted that this was like cooling, and then when warming was happened, more erosion takes place, and then we get this curve, and then cooling happens, and then ice age. Then similar things happen like this. Can you understand now? So when we have more of ice, then less of erosion, more of water will cut the rock more, and so we were able to identify these structures. And these were uniformly distributed, and 10 such cycles. After every 4 cycles we were able to get a half cycle, and that means after every 4 complete cycles we have a half cycle, like we have the little ice age, little warming. Now we are in a position where we are in a little warming age. It is not a complete warming age. Complete warming age would have been more temperatures, more sea level rise, more erosions, more whatever remaining glaciers, I think would eventually melt out in the Himalayas. So we are on a very 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 situation. Just see the amount of glaciers in Khardungla now. So that is the amount of glaciers left, and that we are not ready to preserve. We feel very happy now. I just read today that Srinagar Leh road is open in 2 months. Record, ye wo. But we fail because we have destroyed the Zojila glacier. If Zojila glacier is there, it will survive many lives in near future, because it is the storehouse of fresh water. So instead of letting the glaciers to be preserved, we are just destroying it. So that is the worst part of it. And then we say that water is, like you said, what is the impact of water? So Leh town, if you say Khardungla is the feeder, so you feel very proud that, oh, we keep the Khardungla top open 24 into 7 in winters also, no problem. We have so much bulldozers. Okay, you can make a tunnel below it, yaar. Let the glacier be there. Why you want to destroy the glacier? So my point is, we should preserve the glaciers. So this is how things can be, and we can improve not only the surface water situation, but also the groundwater situation if we have more glaciers. And we can always now government is very active now, and I'm hopeful in near future, maybe it takes lesser time than the time it has taken to make the Rohtang tunnel, because Rohtang tunnel was scheduled to be made in a very short time, but it took about almost double revenues. And so that also, I think, you are employing more of foreign geologists. You are relying more on people who have not seen Himalayas, who don't understand Himalayas, and then you're just wasting money. If you can just study more about the geology of the area and a thorough way, that I think we can construct it in more effective way and in less time, and with even half the money which is spent on making Rohtang tunnel. So I have that confidence, because this is the impact which geologists can do. Now,
what is your opinion on this whole national highway that is proposed for the Char Dham Yatra,
see,
running the Himalayan mountains?
see, I am of the opinion that see, if you are with the proper doctor, so you are safe. You want to get yourself operated from the best doctor. If you are on a deathbed, and if you know that you have this illness, you try to find the best doctor you can afford. And if you have money, then you want the best doctor. But that is not happening in the case of Himalayas. When you want Char Dham Yatras, anything can be built, because I have been inspired by Medlicott, who first discovered Kasoli fossils from Kasoli, and Medlicott, Pilgrim West, all these geologists like Brogue, Captain Brogue or Engineer Brogue. So they were like dedicated geologists and engineers, you know. And if you see the Kalka Shimla tunnel, Kalka Shimla tunnels and Kalka Shimla railway track built more than 100 years ago, I think there was no much cement or steel at that time. But you see that with very little engineering skills were also there, but I think more geological skills, because if you can understand the Himalayas, you don't have to destroy them more. You use them for your benefit always. So that is possible. But now, after 100, more than 100 years, we are witnessing a highway from Kalka to Solan or Shimla, you can say now. They are expanding it to the. But that is going to be the worst wonder as a geologist, I can say, because I think the geologists have failed to perform their duties in making that highway. Why I say so? Because they are just cutting the mountains indiscriminately without understanding the geology of it. If you compare the Kalka Shimla section, railway section built 100 years ago, and if you see the same section about 100 now more than after 100 years, you will be just terrible to see what they have done now. They have just raped the Himalayas, you know. That is the word I can use it. But if you see that the Kalka Shimla train built 100 years ago with more than 100 tunnels, you see how they have loved. You know, even if there is small thing that has to be done, you know, you can still feel that love and less of rocks being cut, or minimum whatever wherever it is required, they are using the natural geology of it, so that the Himalayas are not harmed, you know, the way it is being harmed now. And it is like the same thing when you want to take blood from your body. If you take 200 ml after every 3 months, you are happy, you know. You can take as many times you want. But if you just, it is not the depth of the needle which matters, it is proper identification of the vein and how much blood you can take out from it. Similarly, if we can do the same thing, identify proper rocks and use those rocks and build the alignment accordingly without disturbing the Himalayan rocks like they had done hundreds of years while building this railway track from Kalka to Shimla, or this Darjeeling track from Bardopa, I don't remember, Siliguri to, you can say, Darjeeling. So it is possible. It is possible. See, no landslides in on those roads. We have. I've never heard major breakthroughs or people the bridges being washed out, or a flash flood destroying it, or landslide anytime destroying that railway track. Maybe small minor incidents may have happened in there, but this is how it has to be done. So that is possible. It is not that it is not possible. Char Dham Yatra is a very small, but if you go by the present standards which the National Highway Authority is following, I think that is going to be a big blunder. Because I don't think they have a proper geologist, or they are employing geologist or paid geologist from outside somewhere, you know, who doesn't have any research on Himalayas. And if they are going to do it, we may face a lot of problem with them. But if we are able to do the same systematic studies which 100 years ago was done by by geologists or with or Mr. Balkuji, who was a layman but had a lot of knowledge about geology, and he was able to do this Kalka Shimla highway. So that can be a very good boom for the Char Dham Yatra also.
Yeah, so that was just a digress
Yeah.
question. But coming back to your work and the groundwater, so can you explain what is the actual source of this groundwater? Where is this groundwater coming from? How do you identify locations?
Yeah, groundwater. See, I was just interested in fossils, but when I completed my graduation, I had the largest collection of fossils, which was good enough to for my PhD degree also. So I didn't do much for my PhD except I just rewrote few lines to get my PhD degree, and I didn't have any scholarship. So my professor advised, when these posts for hydrogeologist in Himachal government came up, that you can take up that job and subsequently you can carry out your PhD. So at that time they were giving us 82 rupees 80 paisa per day, and that was a huge amount for us because from in our house we were getting around 400 to 500 rupees per month to meet our expenses in university. That was great amount at that time. And then 2500 rupees per month was like, wow, we are the king, you know. And then we started investigating. So when I started reading about groundwater, so all the books which I wrote, including Central Groundwater Board Authority, which is the authority in India, they considered that mountains are devoid of groundwater resources. And same thing was with the US geological investigations, which they were doing in Pakistan and Afghanistan. So all of them were of the opinion that mountains are considered devoid of groundwater resources. But the first appointment which I got, I was taken, appointment letter मिल गया क्योंकि there was there were not much applications and we just happened to be there. And when we went there and we saw there was a drilling rig standing, and I was asked to, the MLA was standing there, local panchayat members, all the villagers were standing there, and I was asked to give the site so that drilling can be started, you know, without any formal training. So that was the state of affairs. So with some logic, I just went here and there. I went downstream and found that there was a stream flowing back, and then I calculated that okay, we are about 200-300 feet above, so if we can get this drilling up to that stream depth, we may get water. That was how I started, or the spring source. And then the drilling started, and around 160-70 feet the water came out, you know. And then I became an instant hero. इतने सालों से पानी नहीं था भैया, आर्या आया तो इन्होंने पानी निकाल दिया। मेरे को खुद नहीं पता था मैंने कैसे निकाल दिया, पर वो निकल गया. That was how hit and trial method it was followed. So again 2-3 more villages, and I thought that I applied the same principle, and it worked very well, you know. So I was like, यार ये तो बहुत आसान है, ये तो पानी निकालना बहुत आसान है. Then I remember, I think it was my 4th or 5th borewell. I was so confident that यहाँ पे तो पानी हर जगह निकल जाता है. तो वहाँ पे एक जगह थी भोटा, and there was a bus stand. So they asked me where to place the rig. So I, without investigation much, I thought that I will get water. I was so confident, है ना. I 4-5 बोर कर दिए हमने, पानी तो निकल रहा है यहाँ पे सब में. तो मैंने कहा यहाँ पे बस स्टैंड है, तो यहाँ पे आप इसमें बोर कर दो इसके साथ. And then I saw just above that, at top of the hill, there was a fort at the top of the hill, and then that fort was actually that. Then at that time I was just thinking about water, you know. So then the first thought was, if the fort has to survive at the top of the hill, it should have 24/7 water, 365 days. So how are they going to get water at the top of the hill? and how are they going to construct water? So that was the curiosity, and I just went there. So when I went there, there I saw this, that there were two wells in that fort, maybe about 20-25 feet, but they were filled with stones, as some animals, they were telling me, had fallen there long back, and they were Gorkha forts. So maybe around 200 years ago. So this was like wow, yeah. So the hydrogeology was at very prominent at that time, and they had the technique to investigate and explore water at that and those times, But I tried hard to get on the literature which could tell us how and when they were doing what they were doing to find water. But unfortunately, I was not able to find. Maybe at that time, this was entire under Nepal. These forts were under Nepal, and then the Gorkhas of Nepal. So we were not able to find. But then I spent a lot of time there, and it was like a eureka feeling for me. I was feeling very, and I had great respect for the geologists in the past who had not only because not only build those selected those sites where water was available, but also build a site at the top of the hill, and even after say 1,000 years or maybe 400, 500 years, still those forts are still intact. Now we are talking about 8.5 magnitudes, and that survived. Those forts survived the magnitude of Kangra earthquake also. So that was the engineering and the expertise which they were able to build the forts. Then I came down the site in which I had selected. 300 feet they had drilled and not even a drop of water. Just imagine. We were drilling at a site which was about 2,000 feet below, and top of the hill there was water, shallow water at 220-25 feet, and 300 feet no water. That turned out to be the turning point. And then I started, I had sleepless nights for about 3 years, from 1993 onwards to 1996. But my main concern was I visited all these forts and I just tried to figure out, and in all these forts they were almost of the same time, and they had almost all the based on the same principles, they had water. So I was able to analyze that how they were able to find water at the peaks. What are the principles used? So they used very simple principles, and there was geological investigations, there was structural investigations done, and then there was geomorphological evidences. So they were able to calculate that this is how they are going to find water at shallow depths. So it took me 3 years to understand, and after say 1996, I was able to make a conceptual model to explain occurrence and movement of groundwater resources in entire Himalayas. Because at that time I was just interested in, I then all my sites I investigated keeping these three principles in my mind. So if these three principles did not support me, I will never give a site. Sometimes
Okay.
it, so by 19 3 years, after 3 years, our result was like 100% accurate.
What were these three principles?
So the first one was the geology of that area, the rock type, the lithology. The second one was the structural features, the lineaments, and third one was the recharging of that area. So we have to be, and if these three principles are correct, then our site will be 100% successful. So this was not my science. I just rediscovered it from our ancestors, which was already prevalent at that time. And then 1996, I coined the word hydrostratigraphic zonations and presented my paper in International Geological Congress held in Beijing, 1996. That is like just like Olympic Games. So it was chaired by Johnny Moore, International Association of Hydrogeologists president. He was president, International Association of Hydrogeologists, and he too was surprised. Even US cannot find water in the mountains in Pakistan and Afghanistan, and you are talking about finding water in each and every peak. Which I made a statement that so someone asked me where can you find water. So I told him that any peak which is 8,848 meters below the mean sea level, I'll have water. So that is the height of the Everest. So मैंने कहा any peak which is below that, I'll find water. So that was the confidence level which we have, and then so this is how we actually moved. And then 1997, I had this opportunity. 1996 only, some water aid NGO from England, they contacted me, and then they wanted me to do actually a project for the Tibetans who had migrated from Tibet in 1959 following Chinese aggression there, and many Tibetans came and settled on the borders, and some settled in Ladakh, between Ladakh and Hanle. Hanle is the highest observatory where our scientists have built the highest observatory in the world. So from there, there were about 3,800 Tibetans scattered all across these settlements. So that was my first project, and that was for His Holiness Dalai Lama ji. It was so we provided in 2 years. We were able to provide 24 into 7 waters for the entire community, Tibetan community, long back. And then I was asked by Indian Air Force to get water in Air Force Thois, in Air Force Leh, because whenever they would lift water from Thois, from Shiok River in Thois, that has to pass across the airfield, and then in winters this pipe freezes and the pipes will burst, and when they pump water, that would make the entire airway bouncy. So they had a lot of time, lot of tough time in making landing for the aircrafts. Then we worked with DRDO and Siachen Glacier. Then we provided troops to the water to the troops in minus 38 degrees temperature in Siachen, and then there is a history. Then almost all the locations across in Dras, minus 40 degrees, 50 degrees, we were able to provide water to the villages and the army there in Dras. Then Kargil, almost all the locations, the extreme locations, wherever they wanted, then we were able to just get them water. So that was a journey, very fulfilling, and we learned a lot about the movement and how the groundwater moves and how climate is impacting. But our studies have shown for the last 25 years now that not even a single centimeter of water level has decreased in the borewells which we have drilled. So actually there is no impact of climate change on groundwater resources in Himalayas if we do it systematically. So that is what, there may be seasonal fluctuations, but once that seasonal is gone, then we have the same levels which has been done. So we had this doing so we entered into Guinness World Records, and those were the artisan conditions, and still the flow in those wells are still maintained. So I don't know where people are getting all these informations that groundwater is depleting and all. And in Himalayas, that is a different identity, different game. We should not generalize it with what is happening in other parts of India or the world. And then they are the brains, they control the entire water. Yeah. So
So I wanted to ask you, I don't know ये सही सवाल है क्या? I'm not from a science background, so just bear with me. But why is this water there in the Himalayas? Groundwater में क्यों है वो in the ground, and वो recharge कैसे होता है? Is it the rivers, is it the glaciers?
no, it's basically the water cycle, It's the complete water cycle. I'm telling you, Himalayas are the Himalayas are the brains of water. If you tell me what is the brain which is controlling, if brain is controlling the entire movement of a human being, the glacier in Himalayas are controlling the entire water movement across the Himalayas. So Himalayan glaciers are are like unimaginable, you know.
So the groundwater is present because of the glaciers? Or
Yes, in you can say in Himalayas, they play a very significant role.
so it recharged also by the melting of glaciers.
Yes, by the melting of glaciers, but rain also has some contributions. But in Ladakh, we hardly have any rain. So I keep that aspect very out of question, you know. So you have only one source, you know. So other channels like paleo channels are also very important, you know. So these fossils helped me in identifying the paleo channels very effectively, you know.
What would you what would
Paleo
you
channels means ancient channels.
hmm.
So in ancient channels, there is very less probability of getting a good fossil. But if you can identify an ancient channel, for me, when I was collecting fossils, these channels were not good for me, you know. So I would, because these channels would never give me good fossils. On the other hand, these channels are very good source for water, groundwater. So when I was looking for fossils, I would avoid channels.
So is a
So the
bore well
fossils, the knowledge of fossils, collecting fossils, helped me in identifying the channels which I cursed because they would never give me good fossils. On the other hand, when I started groundwater investigation and was in detail doing studies in detail, I found that those channels are actually holding water, and all the water which we are getting is in the paleo channels only.
so is
So
the borewell in a
so
old
so
is it a
so wherever you get channels, you don't get fossils, good fossils, but you get very good water. So both the studies helped me to complement and understand the rocks in Himalayas and the hydrogeology and the paleo environmental conditions in a very effective way. And I was able to reconstruct, and then that helped me a lot in actually making a very good study for groundwater and fossils. But people don't understand this. You know, fossils they say is a different thing, and groundwater they say is a different thing. But for me, it was like, अरे जहाँ पे फॉसिल मिलने हैं वहाँ पे पानी मिलना नहीं है और जहाँ पे पानी मिलना है वहाँ पे फॉसिल नहीं मिलने हैं. It was like so it was it was like a very interesting study for me, you know. Yes.
is a borewell in an ancient fort considered a paleo channel? Is that
No, you can say a paleo channel. Yes, they were able to tap a paleo channel, but yes, I think they had a very deep knowledge about the paleo channel because we were using drilling techniques and we were expecting the drill to do depths up to 300 feet. Huh? But at that time, they could only dig 30 feet or maybe 20 feet, and then their accuracy was more higher than us. So I would say that still we have not reached the stage which our ancestors had reached in identifying and developing those paleo channels. So because that requires a lot of hard work. Now people are not ready to work laboriously because each and every rock has to be identified in the field. All the observations have to be made in the field. All the analysis have to be made in the field, and then you have to just decide in the field. That was the accuracy, you know. But now you just don't want to do that much labor work because conditions are not favorable and um, you want a luxurious life और वो उतना ज़्यादा काम आप करना नहीं चाहते हो जितना एक जियोलॉजिस्ट को करना चाहिए और दैट इज बिकॉज द डॉक्टर्स द जियोलॉजिस्ट आर नॉट डूइंग द ड्यूटीज प्रॉपरली in Himalayas, and that is why we are facing a lot of problems. If the doctors or the geologists of Mother Earth do their duties properly, work hard in the field, because this is not anybody's, you know, you can't, as a layman, you cannot comment on these things, but the geologist knows at least some things, and if they work sincerely, then they are only the people who can actually give solutions also. Because it's like just going to the hospital and if the doctor says, no, I cannot do anything, then you don't have anything, but you just take your patient away and he may die. Similarly, if the geologists of this country start really working hard and they work effectively in the Himalayas and work day and night, try to predict these earthquakes, and establish earthquake stations, because your topic was about earthquakes. So if they establish this earthquake laboratories and set in those extreme conditions, work, establish, then we may have a better future in predicting these earthquakes, and we can save a lot of people from the so-called natural calamities.
And I just have one or two more questions. I wanted to, like you mentioned, the plant species that you found. Are there any other fossils that you have found? Can you? I mean, you have a lot. You start going to start a museum also, right? So, other
So you've done a lot of
fossils
research, huh?
have to serve my job. But yeah, I mean,
Yes.
are there other like the whale bone that was found? So, any other fossils that support this whole theory that the Himalayas, the plates crashed together, there was a sea in between?
Yes, see, the plate crashed and things like that. You should understand. So, when I was a child, I think I have fake memories, but I had a teacher, Mrs. Mendloy. She used to teach us in fifth, sixth primary class, biology. And then at that time, Charles Darwin, I was really impressed by his theories of origin of species and the way he taught evolution and then natural selection. And then I was inspired by Mendel, the father of hereditary or genetic engineering. And then these two somehow kept me very much involved, the concepts, how they were able to, from simple observations, he was able to conclude that how the species have originated from single cell to multicellular organisms, from multicellular organisms to fishes, and fishes to amphibians, reptiles, then reptiles to birds, and then mammals, and then humans. So this entire cycle of ontogeny, repeating phylogeny, and then natural selection, things like that, made me, I was very comfortable with these theories. Similarly, this mutation theories by Mendel and his experiments. So I somehow wanted to become a genetic engineer, but I was not very good in dissection. I could not, dissect a frog or an earthworm, in my medical classes in 11th or 12th, or a frog, So somehow I don't know, but that liking always remained, But then God gave me an opportunity to become a geologist. Here, you can play with anything. So I was doing my collecting fossils. Then I was interested in evolution of angiosperms, then evolution of mammals, then the origin of life, and then the origin of Earth. Then how the Earth, okay, Earth is formed, लेकिन Earth भी कैसे बनी होगी, तो gases से बनी होंगी, तो gases कैसे cool down हुई होंगी. So this entire questions kept on cropping in my mind, and I was like enjoying these questions and was trying to find an answer to them. And over the years, I had this because whichever paper I read was like Himalayas are geologically very complex. So, so complex, they are not very complex. They are like, wow, they are just like very simple, if you understand them. But if you don't understand them, then you're right. So most of the books and the papers which I read till date considered the first line would be Himalayas are geologically complex, folded, faulted mountain ranges, blah blah blah, formed due to tectonic collision of blah blah blah. But then it was not like that. Then I say that they are not very complex, they are very simple. Yes, they may have formed due to the collision, but why that the question was, why did the collision happen? So that was disturbing me. It was not the collision. It was why did that collision happen? So I did extensive research. Whenever I was doing the last 30 years was extreme cases for me in extreme locations, and then every time I was getting closer to my answers, why. And this time when I was in Galwan, I almost had all the answers cleared. So for 4 months I was with the army. For 1 or 2 months I was with the army, and 1 or 2 months I was in you can say क्या बोलते हैं उसको, आई एम जस्ट फॉरगेटिंग दिस नेम, जब हम कोविड से पहले करते हैं तो वो ये हाँ
क्वारंटीन।
quarantine, हाँ. So 2 months I was in quarantine, you can say, and 2 months was 1 or 2 months was with the army. So it left me within 4 months in Ladakh, and then I was totally with the rocks, with the army, with the water, and with the. So that was the first time. Well, I had been to Galwan in 2013 also. Actually, we had drilled a well, explored well in Galwan in 2013. At that time, it took us about two, almost like a day to reach there, and there was no road. But this time it was like 4 hours from Tangse. So infrastructure has improved. Government has done a lot of work. Then from there we went to DBO दौलत बेग ओल्डी, और वो जो श्योक वाला ब्रिज है जो अभी इन्होंने प्लान किया था अपना, अभी इनॉग्रेट किया था अपना डिफेंस मिनिस्टर ने 2019 में, श्योक के श्योक वॉज नॉट टेम्ड. श्योक इज लाइक सौर ऑफ इंडिया, सौर ऑफ लद्दाख, तभी उसको श्योक बोलते हैं. श्योक हो गया भैया ये तो इट वॉज अनप्रडिक्टेबल रिवर. और उसके बाद ही जब हमने ये 2019 में वो श्योक ब्रिज की इनॉग्रेशन की, उसकी फाउंडेशन जो पाइलिंग वाला कंसेप्ट था वो मेरा दिया हुआ था. वो सारा का सारा ब्रिज का जो सर्वे था वो पाइलिंग का कंसेप्ट मैंने प्लान किया था जब हम ये रेक्की करने गए थे चुमताश में आगे. तो वो बड़ी एक सिचुएशन थी. और ये टाइम जब से ये ब्रिज बना था तब से ये चाइना टेंस आ गया था, क्योंकि उनको ये लगता था कभी ये ब्रिज तो बना ही नहीं पाएंगे और इसको टेम नहीं कर पाएंगे, और सिर्फ 2 महीने तक ये खुला रहेगा. पर यह करके दिखा दिया, क्योंकि वो हमने टेम भी किया. वो जियोलॉजिकली सिंपल प्रिंसिपल्स लेके, दैट इज द ओनली ब्रिज इन एशिया आई थिंक जो हमने इतना इस पाइलिंग कंसेप्ट से बनाया. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि हम नहीं कर सकते, टेम हम कर सकते हैं. कोई भी ब्रिजेस हमारा वॉश आउट नहीं होएगा अगर हम जियोलॉजी को समझ के काम करेंगे. तो श्योक पे 2013 से काम हो रहा था. उससे पहले तो सोचते नहीं थे ब्रिज बनेगा. पैराड्रॉपिंग से चुमताश और ये डीबीओ एरिया में ड्रॉपिंग होती थी, या 27 दिन लग जाते थे वहाँ पे पहुँचने में, डीबीओ दौलत बेग ओल्डी सेक्टर में, जिसको अब हम जहाँ पे वो 5 कंट्रीज मिलती हैं हमारी, जहाँ पे हम अभी जाके भी हैं. तो ये सारे का सारा जो एरिया है, तो वहाँ पे हमने ये करके दिखाया सारा. अब ये डीबीओ में वहाँ पे आगे तो वहाँ पे हमारे पास पानी भी था. पानी के लिए हमारे को कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं थी. सर्दी में भी 24 आवर्स पानी है. बेशक -40 डिग्री टेम्परेचर चला जाए, लेकिन हमारे बोरवेल्स, मैंने देखा 2013 में, आई वॉज वेरी क्यूरियस कि वो बोरवेल हमारा चल रहा है वहाँ पे डीबीओ में, गलवान में, कि नहीं. तो हमारा चल रहा था वहाँ पे. तो वह 4-5 साल में कुछ हो, अभी ये 19, 5-6 साल में, it was giving wow water and they were all getting water from there, our army troops. तो ये ऐसी चीज़ें हैं कि I just forgot the question, what was asked. So,
About fossils, you can name a few fossils.
अच्छा, हाँ, सॉरी, आई वाज जस्ट कैरिड अवे. सो अभी क्या है कि ये जो फॉसल्स थे, इसमें अब हमने क्या किया, यहाँ से अभी भी गलवान में भी हमारे को वहाँ पे डीबीओ में मिला एक अच्छा सा ब्रैकियोपोड जो अप्रॉक्सीमेटली अराउंड 200 to 300 मिलियन ईयर्स ओल्ड है. 200 और 300 मिलियन ईयर्स के बाद है. और वो ब्रैकियोपोड और यहाँ का अपना स्पीति में मिल रहे हैं, वो ऑलमोस्ट सेम है जो एमोनॉइड्स मिल रहे हैं. तो एमोनॉइड्स भी हमारे को मिले यहाँ से. हमारे को उधर वो भी मिले हैं, क्या बोलते, वेल के मिले हैं, शार्क के मिले हैं, स्टोमेटोलाइट्स मिले हैं, एल्गल रिमेन्स मिले हैं जो 2.5 बिलियन ईयर्स ओल्ड हैं. तो जो यहाँ के सबसे ओल्डेस्ट फॉसिल्स हमारे को मिले हैं. कुछ ट्राइलोबाइट्स यहाँ पे हमारे दोस्तों ने साथ यहाँ पे मिले हैं उनको. तो पूरे का पूरा जो है यहाँ पे हमारे को एवोल्यूशन ऑफ लाइफ, आप समझिए कि जब अर्थ की रचना हुई है, जैसे ये मानते हैं 4.6 बिलियन ईयर्स, 4.54 बिलियन ईयर्स या 6 बिलियन ईयर्स से लेके आज तक के जितने भी फॉसिल्स हैं वो सारे के सारे उस म्यूजियम में डिस्प्ले होंगे. और उसमें हम दिखाएंगे कि कैसे एवोल्यूशन हो रहा था, कैसे एक्सटिंक्शन हो रही थी, फिर कैसे अर्थ कूल डाउन हुई. तो हमारे पास वो रॉक्स भी हैं. मैं आइसलैंड गया था तो मैं वहाँ से वो रॉक्स लेके आया था जो ओल्डेस्ट तो नहीं है, लेकिन जब अर्थ बन रही होगी, क्योंकि आइसलैंड सारा वॉल्केनों पे बना हुआ है और वहाँ पे वॉल्केनिक रॉक्स बहुत अच्छे अच्छे से हैं. तो मैं वहाँ से वो लेके आया था. तो जब अर्थ की सृष्टि की रचना हो रही थी तो वो सबसे पहले रॉक्स भी वैसे ही बने होंगे कुछ, तो वो भी हम वहाँ पे रखेंगे. कुछ मीटियोराइट के भी हम सैंपल्स देख रहे हैं कहीं से मिल जाएं तो हमारे को, कि वहाँ पे मीटियोराइट इम्पैक्ट हुआ था तो कैसे वहाँ पे वो भी रखेंगे. फिर उसमें हम स्टोमेटोराइट्स की, मैंने जैसे बताए, फॉसिल्स होंगे. फिर ट्राइलोबाइट्स के होंगे जो फर्स्ट इंसेक्ट से, जो मतलब कॉकरोच से आप उसको रिलेट कर सकते हो, उसके एंसेस्टर्स थे जो अप्रॉक्सीमेटली 540 मिलियन साल पुराने आए थे। तो मतलब 2.5 बिलियन ईयर से लेके 540 बिलियन ईयर्स। फिर फिशेस आई, उसके भी हमारे पास फॉसिल्स होंगे। फिर डायनासोर के रायोली में मैं एक्सपीडिशन का पार्ट था जब ये 1996 में 97 में गए थे। तो उसमें हमने जो बालासिनोर में डायनासोर की जो लार्जेस्ट नेस्टिंग साइट है इंडिया में, उसका मैं उस एक्सपीडिशन का पार्ट था। उसके बाद वो गवर्नमेंट ने, हमने रिकमेंडेशन की थी, गवर्नमेंट से रिक्वेस्ट की थी कि यहाँ पे डायनासोर की लार्जेस्ट कोई 10,000 साइट्स हैं जहाँ पे अंडे हैं। यहाँ पे इंडिया में लार्जेस्ट, मेरा ख्याल इतने अंडे वर्ल्ड में कहीं नहीं होंगे यहाँ पे इतने इकट्ठे। तो वो चले गए सारे रोड्स में, क्योंकि यहाँ पे अभी इतना नहीं है, कोई माइनिंग में जा रहे हैं अभी भी, और बहुत कम है जो बचे हैं वहाँ पे। लेकिन अभी भी बच गए क्योंकि वो अब वहाँ पे अच्छा सा पार्क बन गया, डायनासोर पार्क बन गया बालासिनोर में। तो उसके भी कुछ एग्स हम लेके आए थे, वो भी पड़े हैं हमारे पास कुछ। वो हैं तो वहाँ पे हम दिखाएंगे। ग्लॉसोप्टेरिस के भी जो प्लांट्स वो डायनासोर्स खाते थे, या जो वो हैं उस टाइम के एमेनॉइड्स वो हैं। फिर वो पूरी के पूरे ऑयस्टर्स के मेरे पास मेरे ख्याल से भरमार है ऑयस्टर्स की। तो कि हिमालयस में इतने ऑयस्टर्स आपने देखने होंगे तो वहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो। तो उससे ये पता लगता है कि अगर ऑयस्टर्स आपको मिल रही हैं, वेल मिल रही है, बाइवाल्स मिल रहे हैं, गैस्ट्रोपोड्स मिल रहे हैं, तो आपको हमने पूरी की पूरी वो एनवायरनमेंट रिकंस्ट्रक्ट करनी है वहाँ पे। छोटा सा एरिया है, लेकिन जब भी कोई बच्चा वहाँ पे जाएगा, ये मैं फोर्थ फिफ्थ सिक्स के लिए बच्चों के लिए बना रहा हूँ म्यूजियम, अगर उनकी समझ में ये आ जाएगा, इतना इसको सिंपल वे में बनाना है कि अगर उनको वो समझ में आ जाएगा कि एवोल्यूशन क्या होता है, एक्सटिंक्शन होती है, एवोल्यूशन क्या होता है, फिर एक्सटिंक्शन होती है, एवोल्यूशन क्या होता है, फिर एक्सटिंक्शन होती है, और उसके बाद ग्लोबल वार्मिंग क्या होती है, ग्लोबल कूलिंग क्या होती है, ग्लोबल वार्मिंग क्या होती है, ग्लोबल कूलिंग होती है, ग्लोबल वार्मिंग ग्लोबल कूलिंग की साइकिल है। ऐसी ग्लेशियर होता है, फिर वॉल्केनिज्म होती है, ग्लेशियर वॉल्केनिज्म ये सब चलता रहता है। तो आइस एजेस भी आएंगी, वार्मिंग भी आएगी, फिर आइस एज आएगी, फिर वार्मिंग आएगी। तो कूलिंग और वार्मिंग ये चलती रहती है। तो एक प्रक्रिया दिखानी है कि आप लोग कैसे धरती के साथ, ये जो डिजास्टर वर्ड है अपनी ज़िंदगी से हटाओ। अर्थक्वेक्स, अर्थ क्वैक नहीं करती है, मैं तो कहता हूँ अर्थ डांस कर रही है अपना। तो मतलब इसको ऐसी ऐसी टर्मिनोलॉजीज जो एक बहुत फेयरफुल चीज़ें कर देती हैं, वो फेयरफुल इसलिए कर देती हैं कि हम लोगों का हम लोग उस अर्थ को समझ नहीं पाए हैं और उसके साथ नहीं रह पाए अच्छी तरह से। इसलिए हमारे को वो सब इतना वो जब करती है तो हमारे को इतना वो, हम नेगेटिव एस्पेक्ट ज़्यादा देखते हैं, पॉजिटिव एस्पेक्ट कम देखते हैं उसकी। और जब हम उसको पॉजिटिव एस्पेक्ट को देखना शुरू कर देंगे तो हम उसको एंजॉय करेंगे और उसके साथ रहेंगे। और उसके साथ मतलब हर चीज़ को बदल तो सकते हैं, क्योंकि हमारा भी एवोल्यूशन हुआ है तो एक्सटिंक्शन होना ही है। तो ये बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट म्यूजियम का मैसेज जाएगा कि यू डोंट थिंक दैट यू आर परमानेंट हियर। ये रिलीजन भी कुछ नहीं है, सब ये सब भी इंसान की देन है। वो ख़त्म कर, जितना भी तुम कॉम्प्लिकेटेड इसको बना लो, तुम अपनी लाइफ को उतना बना लोगे। लेकिन बेस्ट चीज़ होती है, जैसे जब हमारा वैदिक काल था, जो वेदों का काल था, विज्ञान का काल था, जब हमारा देश विज्ञान के नाम से जाना जाता था, तो वेद के नाम से जाना जाता था। तो उसमें ना तो कोई धर्म था, ना कुछ था, ना रिलीजियस बातें होती थी। उसमें यही होता था कि तुम भगवान को याद करो। तो भगवान का मतलब ये होता था, तुम 5 तत्वों को याद करो। यू शुड रिमेन इन ट्यून विद 5 एलिमेंट्स, एंड दोज आर भ से भूमि, ग से गगन, व से वायु, अ से अग्नि, न से नीर। तो ये सब 5 तत्वों को याद करो। इसका जैसे हम एसएमएस बोल देते हैं, शॉर्ट मैसेजिंग सर्विस, ऐसे ही भगवान का याद करो। तो हम भगवान राम को मान लेते हैं, भगवान कृष्ण को मान लेते हैं, लेकिन भगवान का असली मतलब जो वेदों ने हमारे को बताया वो भूल गए कि ये 5 एलिमेंट्स था, भ ग वा अ न। तो ये 5 एलिमेंट्स को वो एक साइंटिफिक एक टर्मिनोलॉजी दी गई थी कि तुम अगर ये पांचों चीज़ें बोलनी है, चलो तुम भगवान बोल दो, तुम मन में याद रख लो। शॉर्ट मैसेजिंग सर्विस नहीं बोलते हैं आजकल, हम एसएमएस बोल देते हैं। तो वही बंदे को क्या हुआ, शॉर्ट मैसेजिंग सर्विस भूल गया, भगवान का ये 5 एलिमेंट्स भूल गया, सिर्फ भगवान याद रखना शुरू किए, और फिर किसी ने लाके आगे आगे जोड़ दिए। लेकिन उसको अब वापस उसी में आना पड़ेगा, हमारी वैदिक परंपरा में आना पड़ेगा। बियॉन्ड राम, बियॉन्ड कृष्ण, ये सब चीज़ें देख के वैदिक काल में आओ, वेदों के साथ जुड़ो। जब वेदों के साथ जुड़ोगे तो आप विज्ञान के साथ जुड़ोगे, और 5 तत्वों के साथ जुड़ोगे। जब 5 तत्वों में जुड़ोगे तो सबसे पहले भूमि आती है, भग, गगन, वायु, अग्नि, नीर। तो इन पांचों तत्वों से आप जब जुड़ जाते हो तो आप एक अच्छी ज़िंदगी जी सकते हो, जैसे हमारे एंसेस्टर्स जिए थे। तो ये इस जो मैं एवोल्यूशन का जो कंसेप्ट बना रहा हूँ म्यूज़ियम का, तो वो बेसिकली इन्हीं चीज़ों से इंस्पायर्ड है। तो वैदिक परंपरा को कैसे हमने भूल गए, तो मतलब उसी से इंस्पायर्ड था कि इतना बने हैं, और उसमें क्लियर कट मंत्र है कि ये बनता रहेगा, बिगड़ता रहेगा, और कैसे कैसे एवोल्यूशन और एक्सटिंक्शन साथ साथ चलते रहेंगे। तो उसमें घबराने की कोई बात नहीं है। जितना हमारा टाइम है इस धरती को, उसको एंजॉय करते हुए हमने कैसे पॉजिटिव मैसेज के साथ इसकी जैसे कहते हैं ना, दोहन करना है। हमें इसको एक्सप्लॉइट नहीं करना। एक्सप्लॉइट करेंगे तो फिर हम अपना ही एक्सप्लॉइटेशन कर वो नींव खो देते हैं। जैसे अभी हमने देखा जो चमोली में हो गया, केदारनाथ में हो गया, या जो भुज अर्थक्वेक में हो गया, या कांगड़ा अर्थक्वेक में हो जाते हैं। जब हम इन 5 तत्वों से हटेंगे तो हम अपना डिज़ास्टर क्रिएट करेंगे। जब इन 5 तत्वों के साथ जुड़े हुए रहेंगे, तो हम मेरा ख्याल है कि अच्छा भविष्य अपने लिए भी रखेंगे और अपने आगे वाली जनरेशन्स के लिए भी रखेंगे।
एक लास्ट, जैसे बाइट के लिए आई नीड लाइक डॉक्यूमेंट्री के लिए बाइट चाहिए। तो अगर ये 8.5 मैग्नीट्यूड अर्थक्वेक आता है इन द नेक्स्ट, ये महीने में, चलो एक इन 1 मंथ इफ इट कम, तो आप क्या, व्हाट सिचुएशन डू यू सी, मतलब कितना डिस्ट्रक्शन हो सकता है करंटली जो आर्किटेक्चरल प्रैक्टिसेस है, जो